10 gemstones used to communicate across dimensions. Beneath the cold light of microscopes and the flicker of ancient torches, humanity has always believed that some stones don't just exist, they listen. Across civilizations and centuries, people have searched for a way to speak beyond their world, to gods, to spirits, perhaps even to the universe itself. Some stones hum when heated, others reflect images no one can explain, and a few seem to hold within them the memory of something not born on Earth. But where does myth end and science begin? Are we the ones studying the stones, or are they quietly studying us? Welcome to GemTalks, the journey where every gem is a signal, and every signal is a conversation between Earth and the unseen dimensions that surround it. Today we explore 10 gemstones once believed to communicate across dimensions, not for luck, but to stay with us on the path where light, shadow, and time itself begin to speak. Because what you're about to see may forever change the way you look at gemstones. Ranked 10th, Moldavite, the cosmic message frozen in glass. In southern Bohemia, glassy green shards still lie scattered beneath farmland, fragments so light they almost hum in the wind. Locals call them heaven's tears. Scientists call them Moldavite. Formed 15 million years ago when a meteor slammed into Central Europe, each piece is the frozen breath of an explosion that once turned sky to fire. Yet long after the crater cooled, people began to whisper, these stones could speak. Moldavite is a tektite, a natural glass born from sand liquefied by a celestial impact. Its vivid olive to bottle green color comes from iron and magnesium. Found mainly in the Czech Republic, in smaller pockets in Germany and Austria, Moldavite has a chemical signature unique among terrestrial materials, containing isotopic traces matching meteorite compositions. Centuries later, Bohemian alchemists collected these translucent shards, believing they were solidified starlight. In their laboratories, part furnace, part chapel, they ground Moldavite into powders to test whether heavenly glass could transmute base metals. It never did. But it changed something subtler, the belief that the cosmos could leave messages hidden in stone. During the Neolithic period, arrowheads and talismans carved from Moldavite were buried with the dead, suggesting early humans linked it to passage between worlds. By the 19th century, when railway workers rediscovered it near the Vltava River, the gemstone re-entered European fascination. Jewelers from Prague to Paris crafted it into Art Nouveau pendants, framing it with silver vines and lunar motifs. To Victorian collectors, Moldavite embodied the dialogue between faith and science, a literal piece of heaven made wearable. Prices soon rose. By 2020, fine specimens exceeding 50 carats fetched over $20,000 at mineral auctions. Today, demand still outpaces supply, as the only legal quarries are closing, preserving Moldavite's reputation as a finite cosmic relic. Modern gemologists study its internal swirl textures, microscopic ripples of gas bubbles frozen mid-flight, like voice prints of the explosion. To some researchers, these patterns record the trajectory of impact. To others, they mimic sound waves. This ambiguity fuels fascination online, where New Age circles describe Moldavite as a frequency amplifier. Yet from a scientific standpoint, its only resonance is optical, light refracting through uneven silica layers. Still, when collectors describe a vibration, perhaps what they truly sense is not energy, but awe, the awareness of holding in their hand a fragment of a fallen sky. Under daylight, Moldavite glows translucent green. Under backlight, it turns almost electric, a hue no emerald can mimic. Raw specimens are sculpted into teardrop or leaf forms, each marked by natural pitting. When set in platinum or white gold, the gem seems to emit light from within, as if remembering its fiery birth. Few materials in jewelry combine that duality. Earthly glass, cosmic messenger. In museums across Prague, trays of Moldavite rest under low light, labeled impact glass, 15 million years. No one can hear the explosion anymore. But each piece remains a geological sentence, a message written not in language, but in light. If this stone surprised you, leave a comment below. What message do you think Earth still keeps hidden in glass? Next, we move from cosmic impact to royal devotion, where blue pigment once served as prayer itself. Ranked ninth, lapis lazuli, the stone that taught humans to speak to the gods. Before alphabets, before ink, some civilizations believed the sky itself could write. They carved their prayers into a blue stone, believing each mark carried their voice to the heavens. That stone was lapis lazuli, not merely decoration, but translation, the color of speech between worlds. Lapis lazuli is not a single mineral, but a rock composed primarily of lazurite, flecked with calcite and pyrite, giving the illusion of stars suspended in twilight. Its oldest deposits lie in the Sarisang mines of Afghanistan's Badakhshan range, exploited for more than 6,000 years, among the earliest recorded gemstone sources on Earth. When sunlight touches raw lapis, the surface absorbs almost every wavelength except the deepest blues, the same wavelength ancient priests associated with divine breath. For them, the color itself was a frequency, a resonance bridging human language and the unseen. In Mesopotamia, tablets recovered from the ruins of Ur describe rituals where lapis amulets were placed on the tongue of statues before temple dedication, to open the mouth, granting them the power to speak. Egyptians carved lapis eyes into statues of Osiris, believing the gem's luminescence allowed deities to see through stone. In the royal courts of Akkad and Thebes, it symbolized truth made visible, a mineral oath between ruler and sky. When Queen Puabi's tomb was excavated in 1922, archaeologists found lapis beads strung into a crown, its blue still vivid after 4 millennia, untouched by decay, as if time refused to silence it. During the Middle Ages, ground lapis became ultramarine pigment, the costliest color in the world, worth more than gold. Artists reserved it for halos, robes, and heavens in illuminated manuscripts, the visual voice of the sacred. But behind the art lay devotion, bordering on ritual. To prepare the pigment, craftsmen whispered prayers as they separated blue particles from gray rock, calling it purifying the speech of stone. Each grain, once a mountain, became a message. Even Leonardo da Vinci wrote that ultramarine spoke silently to the mind. Thus, a mineral mined from ancient silence became the color of divine communication, a continuity stretching across 5,000 years. Today, lapis still carries symbolic weight. In some regions of Afghanistan, miners touch the rock before extraction, murmuring, Ya Samawat, O heavens. Gem cutters in Jaipur or Idar Oberstein polish the stone's surface until the pyrite veins appear like constellations, selling them for $1,000 per carat in high-grade jewelry. Collectors prize cabochons with deep ultramarine saturation and no calcite streaks, the purest sky. In spiritual circles, it remains the throat chakra stone, though modern gemology treats that only as a cultural metaphor. Still, across science and superstition alike, lapis persists as language. The blue ink earth keeps writing in. Under lamplight, pyrite inclusions glitter like faint stars over an endless blue field. Carved into spheres, the reflections mimic planetary motion. To hold one is to sense both mountain and cosmos, a paradox between matter and message. Centuries ago, humans used lapis to talk to gods. Today, satellites orbit Earth, sending back pictures in blue. Perhaps communication was never about reaching the heavens, but learning to read what the sky had already written. If you've ever seen a gemstone that feels like a language, please tell us below, because next we leave the temple walls and enter the realm of pure energy. Ranked 8th, Phenacite, the crystal that let light speak. In laboratories and meditation halls alike, one crystal keeps appearing, a colorless prism, small enough to be overlooked, yet strangely radiant. Its name means the deceiver, but not for what it hides, for how it reveals. This is Phenacite, a stone so transparent that it seems to disappear, yet within its silence, light finds a new way to speak. Phenacite, or beryllium silicate, beryllium 2-silicon-4, forms in granite pegmatites alongside quartz, topaz, and chrysoberyl. The finest crystals come from Russia's Ural Mountains, Madagascar, and Brazil, with rare transparent specimens rivaling diamonds in brilliance. On the Mohs scale, it measures 7.5 to 8, and when polished, its refractive index exceeds 1.65, giving it a fire unexpectedly intense for a colorless mineral. Gemologists classify it as optically positive biaxial, meaning light entering phenacite splits, not once but twice, creating a double refraction so pure it was once used to calibrate optical instruments. To physicists, it's a study of clarity. To mystics, it became something more. Proof that transparency can carry its own voice. Phenacite was officially named in 1833 from the Greek phanax, deceiver, because early mineralogists often mistook it for quartz or topaz. But to Russian jewelers of the late 19th century, this deception was a virtue. They believed the gem embodied truth hidden in plain sight, setting it into royal insignias and Fabergé-style ornaments. By the early 1900s, Phenacite was rumored among European esoteric circles to be the stone of higher resonance, not because it emitted anything measurable, but because its visual silence forced reflection. Where lapis lazuli spoke in color, phenacite spoke in light. Unlike colored gemstones that shout their presence, phenacite whispers. Its brilliance exists only when light passes through, as though requiring participation. To ancient thinkers, communication with the divine wasn't about sound, but about alignment. And so phenacite became a metaphor for resonance itself, the point where human attention meets natural frequency. Contemporary crystal artists still reference this duality. Sculptor Yuri Lobanov called it the crystal that returns the gaze of light. In a Moscow exhibition in 2022, his phenacite installations refracted beams into Morse-like flashes, bridging art, optics, and coded communication. Science saw refraction, art saw reply. While not abundant, phenacite has a devoted collector market. Fine faceted stones above 5 carats are rare. Transparent crystals with minimal inclusions can reach $3,000 per carat. Brazilian and Burmese phenacite tends to be water clear, while Ural material shows a subtle golden warmth. In jewelry, its understated transparency makes it the anti-gem, invisible until caught by light, then blinding. Communication through light, not metaphorically but physically, defines every modern signal: fiber optics, lasers, satellites. And so phenacite, by accident of physics, prefigured the world's most advanced language, information carried by photons. Perhaps that's why collectors call it the crystal that listens. It doesn't transmit, it reflects, it doesn't speak, it reveals what's already there. Under polarized light, phenacite emits no color, no sound, only stillness. Yet within that stillness, every wavelength of communication passes unhindered. The perfect silence of a stone that understood how to let light speak for it. If you've ever held a gem that seemed to vanish in your hand, tell us what you felt. Next, we step from pure light to pure shadow, where mirrors were once used to talk to the dead. Ranked 7th, Obsidian mirror, the stone that speaks through shadows, a mirror that shows more than your face. In the temples of ancient Mexico, priests stared into a black surface polished from volcanic glass, waiting for gods, ancestors, or perhaps themselves to answer. They called it the smoking mirror. Centuries later, scientists found the same stone, obsidian, in surgical blades and optical tools. The question remains, what did they truly see inside that darkness? Obsidian is a natural volcanic glass, formed when silica-rich lava cools so rapidly that crystals have no time to grow. More complex than steel in edge sharpness, yet fragile in mass, it fractures into razor-like blades. Deposits stretch across Mexico, Guatemala, Turkey, Armenia, and Ethiopia. The purest form, black obsidian, absorbs nearly all visible light. Its luster isn't reflection, it's absorption, a mirror that reveals only through darkness. In Teotihuacan, in later Aztec civilization, priests crafted circular mirrors from obsidian, polished by hand with sand and water for months. One such mirror, unearthed in 1519, now rests in the British Museum, its surface flawless, yet opaque. Ritual texts describe how it was used to call upon shadows. Anthropologists translate that as symbolic introspection, not necromancy. The mirror served as a tool for dialogue between the living and the unseen aspects of the self. It was communication, yes, but not with the dead, with memory. When Spanish chroniclers arrived, they called these mirrors diabolical. Yet only decades later, European scientists discovered obsidian's surgical utility. Blades sharper than any forged steel. One material, condemned as sorcery, then reborn as precision. In that inversion lies irony. A stone once accused of summoning demons became a tool to heal flesh. The same surface that reflected souls now cut human tissue cleaner than modern scalpels. Thus, obsidian became the paradox of perception. What we fear often mirrors our own misunderstanding. Modern optics still uses the principle of light absorption and reflection contrast, which is derived from volcanic glass research. In 2019, engineers replicated obsidian's surface microtexture to design anti-reflective telescope coatings. To look deeper into space, the black mirror that once gazed into the gods now looks into galaxies. Its ancient function, bridging visible and invisible, never truly vanished. Only its language changed. Ritual became measurement. Yet the intent, communication with the unknown, remains. Hold a piece of obsidian under sunlight, and it seems solid black. Tilt it, and faint rainbows emerge. Sheen obsidian, born from thin film interference. It is not lightless after all. It merely hides color until the angle is correct. Perhaps that's its message. What we call darkness is only unreceived light. Before it became a mirror, it was a weapon. Before a weapon, a shard. Before a shard, fire. And before fire, silence. Every reflection we see today is history looking back in reverse. If you could speak to your reflection and ask one question, what would it be? Next, we rise from the shadows into the stone that carries the sound of the sky itself. Ranked 6th, Celestite, the whisper of the sky. If stones could sing, this one would sound like a whisper carried by the wind. Hidden inside pale blue crystals lies a mineral that the ancients believed was frozen music, a fragment of the sky itself. Its name, Celestite, from Kylum, meaning heaven. But what exactly does heaven sound like when it echoes through stone? Celestite, strontium sulfate, forms in evaporate deposits, ancient seabeds where minerals crystallized as water disappeared. It grows in delicate orthorhombic clusters, often sky blue, translucent, and fragile. Large deposits exist in Madagascar, Sicily, and Ohio, U.S., sometimes occurring alongside gypsum and halite. Unlike the fiery birth of obsidian, celestite forms through evaporation. Not explosion, but absence. Its crystals record silence, the slow retreat of oceans, leaving behind their final breath of salt and light. That origin alone makes it a natural metaphor for communication through stillness. In the 18th century, miners in Sicily called it pietra del cielo, stone of the sky. Early mineralogists noted its unusual property. When heated, it emits a faint crackling tone due to strontium expansion, a literal voice of stone. This scientific phenomenon fueled myths of singing crystals. During the Age of Enlightenment, celestite specimens circulated among salons in Paris and London as acoustic curiosities. Philosophers like Diderot described them as proof that even matter remembers harmony. The line between physics and poetry was thin, and celestite lived right at that threshold. Where phenacite embodied light, celestite embodies tone. Collectors notice its form, radiating clusters, often hollow at the center, like frozen echoes. Each crystal face refracts light into soft gradients of sky blue, white, and silver. In cathedral architecture, similar geometry appears in ceiling vaults meant to amplify chant. Perhaps that is a coincidence, or maybe intuition that symmetry itself can create resonance. Celestite's shape mirrors that idea, communication through spatial harmony rather than words. Modern acoustic researchers even modeled sound wave reflection patterns on celestite structures to simulate natural resonance chambers. In laboratories, it doesn't sing, but it does shape sound. Celestite remains too fragile for jewelry, yet entire clusters are displayed in collectors' rooms as sound fossils. High-grade Madagascar specimens fetch $2,000 to $3,000 per yard, prized for symmetry and color purity. When light passes through, the crystal seems to breathe, fading between opacity and translucence, like clouds dissolving. It isn't a gemstone to wear, it's one to listen to. Communication across dimensions doesn't always mean sending messages. Sometimes it means receiving silence. Celestite stands as that receiver, an ear sculpted from the earth itself, waiting for the sky to answer. Perhaps that's why it's always blue. Not because it reflects heaven, but because it remembers it. No explosion, no sound. Only the memory of waves retreating and air filling the space they left behind. In that absence, Celestite speaks, not with voice, but with echo. Have you ever heard silence that felt alive? Next, we descend again into a stone said to hold the messages of an ancient civilization itself. Ranked 5th, Lemurian quartz. The crystal that holds Earth's forgotten code. Deep in the Serra do Cabral mountains of Brazil, miners discovered quartz crystals unlike any others. Each surface was covered in perfectly parallel lines, like inscriptions carved by invisible hands. They called them Lemurian seed crystals. Some saw scratches, others saw messages. What if both were right? Lemurian quartz is a variety of clear to pinkish quartz found primarily in Minas Gerais, Brazil, and occasionally in Colombia and Madagascar. What distinguishes it are horizontal striations on its sides, natural growth lines formed when crystals paused and resumed their growth in rhythmic pulses. Each line marks a temporal event, a moment in geological time. To mineralogists, those grooves are layered deposition patterns. To storytellers, they resemble script. And that's where geology meets myth. In the 1990s, Brazilian miners sold these striated crystals to international collectors. New Age communities began calling them Lemurian seeds, claiming they were encoded by an ancient lost civilization, Lemuria, before a cataclysm sank their continent. The myth spread quickly, carried by the internet and exhibitions. But beyond myth, there's an anthropological truth. Humans have always used patterns to assign meaning. From cuneiform tablets to data circuits, our species reads rhythm as a message. So perhaps the real question isn't whether the quartz was encoded, but why we see it that way. Under polarized light microscopy, Lemurian quartz reveals growth interference bands, micro-records of temperature and pressure fluctuations over millions of years. In a literal sense, it does contain information, not from a vanished civilization, but from the Earth itself. Geologists sometimes describe quartz as a natural chronometer. Like tree rings, each layer documents the environment it grew in. That's not mysticism, that's data. And suppose one broadens the definition of communication to include any system that records and transmits change. In that case, every Lemurian crystal truly is a message, just not from who we thought. Human fascination with coded stones isn't new. Ancient Peruvians used quipus, knotted cords, to record numbers and stories. Babylonians pressed reeds into clay. In a sense, Lemurian quartz mirrors these inventions, a nonverbal archive. Artists today have adopted the motif. Japanese sculptor Eri Nakagawa laser etches sound wave data from whale songs into Lemurian crystals, continuing the idea of storing voices in matter. Her installations in 2024's Museum of Natural Resonance explored a question echoing this documentary's theme. What if Earth already knows how to remember sound? On the collector's market, genuine Lemurian specimens sell from $100 to $3,000, depending on clarity and striation detail. Most are kept raw, not cut, because polishing erases their script. When sunlight hits the ridges, the lines glow faintly like braille made of light. Some touch them like reading. Though nothing is written, everyone seems to feel something. Maybe Lemurian quartz isn't a code waiting to be cracked, but a record that's already been read countless times by the planet that made it. Every ridge, every line, a geological sentence in Earth's oldest language, time. If a stone could store a message for humanity, what do you think it would say? Next, we turn to a crystal that never forgets negativity because it never holds it in the first place. Ranked fourth, Kyanite, the conductor of thought. Some stones are stored, others block. But one crystal does neither. It simply conducts. Its deep blue blades never hold negativity because nothing stays inside them. Ancient artisans believed it aligned not just tools but minds. This is Kyanite, the silent conductor between thought and matter. Kyanite, an aluminum silicate, forms in high-pressure metamorphic rocks, schist and gneiss, during continental collisions. It often appears as long, bladed crystals, ranging from cornflower blue to steel gray, sometimes transparent with vitreous luster. Unlike most minerals, its hardness is anisotropic, 4.5 across the length, 7 along the blade. In other words, it resists differently depending on direction. A paradox in physics and a metaphor in philosophy, because kyanite's very structure enforces balance through contrast. The name kyanos means deep blue in Greek, and references to it appear in medieval lapidaries as thin. Two strengths. Sailors once carried thin rods of kyanite as early compass talismans, believing it could align itself with Earth's magnetic field. Though unproven, the belief persists as a metaphor, orientation through invisible forces. In Himalayan rituals, blue kyanite was carved into prayer ornaments representing clarity of speech, because the stone, like voice, channels rather than stores. It was not a vessel, but a path. In modern geology, kyanite serves as a pressure temperature indicator. Its crystal formation records the stress history of metamorphism. That means every kyanite blade literally embodies direction, a frozen map of geological movement. No wonder humans saw in it a symbol of alignment. Engineers studying piezoelectric minerals note that though kyanite itself isn't piezoelectric, its internal structure mimics directional polarization. If quartz is the hard drive, kyanite is the wire, not storing data but transferring it. In communication theory, this becomes the perfect metaphor, a medium without memory. Under natural light, kyanite reflects like silk. Its fibrous surface scatters rays into thin glows, resembling strands of current. High-grade transparent crystals from Nepal or Brazil reach $800 to $1,200 per carat, valued for their electric blue hue. When set into jewelry, the stone seems alive, refracting between calm and charge. To gem cutters, polishing kyanite is a challenge. One wrong angle, and it fractures. But that fragility creates its beauty, a reminder that transmission always risks breaking the line. In contemporary design, architects borrow from kyanite's geometry, vertical balance, linear symmetry, and tension light. Psychologists cite it in exhibitions about cognitive flow, showing how focus moves like a current through aligned structures. Even linguists compare the brain's associative networks to crystalline lattices, pathways without storage. Kyanite becomes the model of thought itself, always moving, never clinging. A single blade of kyanite rests on a table. It neither absorbs light nor resists it. The camera moves closer. The striations blur into a line of horizon. For a moment, it looks like sky caught inside stone. A conductor frozen mid-signal, still waiting for thought to pass. Have you ever felt a moment of perfect alignment, when thought, sound, and stillness connect? Next, we move to a gem where light itself translates emotion, a crystal that turns feeling into radiance. Ranked third, Danburite, the stone that translates emotion into light. Some gemstones dazzle, some protect, but a few translate. Deep inside a clear crystal from Connecticut, light bends in such a way that warmth turns visible. To gemologists, it's refraction. To poets, it's emotion-finding language. This is Danburite, the stone that lets light feel. Danburite is a calcium borosilicate first discovered in Danbury, Connecticut, in 1839, hence its name. It forms in metamorphic limestones and contact zones, often appearing as prismatic crystals with sharp terminations and high transparency. Color ranges from colorless to pale champagne or pink, depending on trace elements. With a hardness of 7 to 7.5 on the Mohs scale, it rivals quartz, yet its brilliance is uniquely soft, caused by high refractive dispersion without color dominance. Gemologists call it a subtle fire, not an explosion of light, but a steady translation of it. Unlike stones prized for their hue, Danburite's allure lies in what it doesn't have. No intense color center, no visible inclusions. Yet this absence creates purity of refraction, producing a soft internal glow. Physicists classify this as total internal reflection at low saturation, but to the eye it looks alive. In optical studies, Danburite exhibits a rare combination of clarity plus double reflection that allows light to cross itself inside the crystal. In that interference, light behaves almost like language, repeating, echoing, and transforming. In the late 19th century, Danburite became a favorite among French jewelers of the Belle Époque, who described it as la lumière calme, calm light. Its subtlety contrasted with the flamboyant diamonds of the era. Some collectors associated it with emotional sincerity, beauty that speaks quietly without performance. In Japan's Meiji period, Danburite carvings were used in temples as offerings for clarity of heart. No record mentions mysticism, only aesthetics, a light that never burns yet never fades. Across cultures, the gem's reputation grew not for what it claimed to do, but for what it made people feel when they saw it. Today, high-quality Danburite from San Luis Potosí, Mexico, commands $500 to $2,000 per carat, especially in elongated step cuts that maximize transparency. Unlike most gems, it's rarely dyed or treated. Purity is its selling point. Jewelers prefer it for minimalist settings, thin platinum claws that allow light to travel unbroken. When worn, it doesn't sparkle like a diamond. It glows. The gem becomes a translator between wearer and observer, an instrument of visual empathy. If Phenacite showed how light speaks, and Celestite how silence listens, then Danburite shows how emotion communicates itself. Not through sound, color, or language, but through resonance of clarity. Artists describe it as the moment when thought turns transparent. Psychologists call that synchrony. In either vocabulary, it's the same act, one being reflecting another perfectly. The camera closes in on a Danburite crystal. The light within shifts, warm, then cool, like breath. No words, no music, only illumination. For a second, the stone is remembering something we forgot how to say. Have you ever seen light that felt like a memory? Next, we reach the penultimate gem, Selenite, the stone once believed to speak with the divine itself. Ranked second, Selenite, the stone that speaks to the divine. Every temple, every faith once sought a way to bring the heavens indoors. Some used mirrors, some used gold, but one civilization built its light from stone, a mineral so pure that it glowed even in darkness. They called it Selenite, from Selene, the moon. Not to worship it, but to talk through it. Selenite is a transparent crystalline form of gypsum, a soft, colorless mineral that splits into thin sheets of natural glass. It forms in evaporate basins, often alongside halite and celestite, crystallizing when ancient seas dry out. Its optical property, pearlescent diffusion, allows light to pass while scattering it, producing a living glow. To architects and priests, that was perfection, a material that transmits light but hides the source. Divine illumination without human hand. The Greeks and Romans shaped selenite slabs into window panes for the temples of Artemis and Selene, believing that moonlight could pass through while impurities could not. In Byzantine architecture, selenite replaced glass in sacred niches, creating a gentle radiance that seemed alive. Records from Herculaneum, 1st century AD, mention selenitium fenestrae, moon windows, designed to channel light onto altars at specific hours. Through geometry and mineral, light became a ritual language. Fast forward to the Middle Ages. Cathedrals replaced selenite with stained glass, but the idea remained: communication with the divine through color and light. In the Great Mosque of Cordoba, alabaster, a selenite variety, still fills window vaults, transforming harsh sunlight into silver mist. Historians call it frozen breath of the sacred. To the faithful, Light wasn't decoration, it was conversation. When sunlight entered the stone, it became evidence that heaven was listening. In modern optics, selenite is known for birefringence. It splits light into two rays traveling at different speeds. Engineers use thin selenite plates to analyze polarization, to reveal what the eye cannot see. Thus, even in laboratories, the mineral still plays the same role it did in temples, revealing hidden order in light. In 2019, artist Lucia Bonet constructed the Selenite Chapel in Barcelona, an installation of 2,000 translucent tiles, arranged to scatter a single beam into 1,000 whispers of light. Visitors reported an uncanny stillness, as if standing inside a thought made visible. While not rare, high-quality transparent selenite remains prized for spiritual architecture and lighting design. Sheets from Mexico's Naka mines, where crystals reach 11 meters long, are considered geological wonders. Collectors purchase smaller blades for $100 to $300 each, prized not for jewelry, but for presence. Its fragility forbids cutting. It must remain whole, or it loses its glow. A lesson in purity. Communication only endures when unbroken. In the end, selenite says nothing. It only stands waiting as light passes through. Every beam, every shadow, every reflection, another attempt by the universe to speak softly. And perhaps that's what divinity always was. Not voice, but light finding its way home. If light itself could pray, what would it say? Stay with us. Next, we reach the final chapter. The gemstone that legends say remembers consciousness itself. In first place, Amethyst skull, the memory of consciousness. Across museums and vaults of the world, there are 13 crystal skulls, carved with impossible precision long before modern tools existed. Most are quartz. One, tinted violet, defies all classification. For centuries it was said to contain memory, not of people, but of thought itself. They call it the amethyst skull. No one agrees who made it, but everyone agrees it looks back. Amethyst is a purple variety of quartz colored by trace iron and radiation exposure. Its lattice is stable, but within it lie microscopic fractures that scatter light, creating the illusion of depth, almost like a lens inside stone. This optical complexity makes quartz the basis for modern communication. Clocks, radios, and digital memory all rely on quartz vibration. So perhaps the ancients were right in one sense. If quartz can hold frequency, can it not also hold memory? The first crystal skulls surfaced in the late 19th century at the British Museum, Musée du Quai Branly, and the Smithsonian, and they are often claimed to be Aztec or Mayan artifacts. Later research revealed most were likely carved in Europe during the 1800s, when fascination with Mesoamerican mysticism surged. Yet one skull stood apart, a single piece of violet quartz discovered in an undocumented private collection in Brazil. Unlike the clear skulls, it showed internal twinning, optical planes, and symmetrical microfractures. Natural features no known forger could reproduce with 19th century tools. Provenance remains debated, but even skeptics admit whoever carved it understood geometry at the atomic level. Throughout history, the human skull has symbolized consciousness, not death. In Tibetan and Mesoamerican ritual, crystal skulls represented containers of vision where light entered and refracted through human likeness. Amethyst, the stone of clarity within intoxication, became a metaphor for lucid thought. Thus, carving the mind's vessel from violet quartz was both literal and poetic, a conversation between spirit and structure. The result is unsettling, a human face that does not decay yet never speaks, the perfect mirror of our search for meaning. In laboratories, quartz oscillators translate energy into precise electrical pulses, the same principle that times computers and watches. Each vibration encodes data through rhythm, not words. Quartz doesn't think, it remembers patterns, and that's what the amethyst skull came to represent, the idea that memory need not be alive to persist. Neuroscientists note that human thought operates on synchronized oscillations around 8 to 12 hertz, nearly identical to the vibrational frequency of quartz in resonance. Coincidence? Maybe. But the symbolic parallel is undeniable. Both the brain and quartz are conductors of rhythm, containers of pattern, not language. For decades, the amethyst skull has appeared in art and literature as a metaphor for collective memory. In 2024, the Museo de Historia Natural de São Paulo exhibited it under the title The Mind That Forgot How to Die. Visitors described the experience not as eerie, but quiet, like standing before a thought that refused to vanish. The curator wrote in the catalog, "Quartz does not hold souls, it holds time. And time, when trapped, looks a lot like consciousness. Every stone we've seen carried a message, some written, some sung, some silent. But perhaps the most valid form of communication isn't sound, color, or code. It's what remains when all of them are gone." Thank you for joining us on this journey through Earth's voices. We'll see you in the next world, or the next episode. As the echoes fade and the light returns to silence, one truth remains. For thousands of years, humanity has looked into these stones searching for answers. But perhaps the rocks were waiting for us to start listening. From the depths of volcanoes to the edges of space, each gem is a fragment of a larger voice. The Earth's own language, spoken across time, frequency, and faith. Thank you for joining this journey through the unseen dimensions of our world. If you felt something awaken in these stories, leave a like, subscribe, and share GemTalks so the conversation between us and the stones can continue. Because in our next episode, we travel from myth to history itself to uncover the stones that changed human civilization. Until then, stay curious, stay grounded, and keep listening to what the Earth is trying to say.